Just as a reminder, you can visit us at thoughtsexpanded.com. That's thoughtsexpanded.com to sign up for our amazing Patreon exclusives, listen directly, and share our latest episodes with your family and friends. Thanks for listening.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Thoughts Expanded. I am your host, Jeff, joined by my co-host, Jacob.
Hey.
And Wiggy.
What's up?
Today, I don't really know what we're talking about. We're going to start out talking about some aliens, though, because there's been some alien news going on. So last week on the 13th, there was another hearing with, I think, Lou Elizondo was one of the people that was there. He's kind of a big alien dude, and some other people.
What's a Lou Elizondo?
He's I can't remember what he was, like, former defense contractor or something, or he worked for some organization. Does anybody know?
No, see, I don't know anything about
Lou Elizondo.
Elizondo.
Okay, here we go. Lou Elizondo is a media personality and author and formerly employed United States Army Counterintelligence and Office of the United Secretary of Defense for Intelligence person.
Okay, sounds kind of important.
Yeah, but I mean, he's one of the big disclosure guys. It's like him and Corbell and George Knapp. Like, those are the big UFO like communicators at the moment. And so it was kind of a big deal that he got to go in front of, Congress or whatever and say his piece. And unfortunately, I was out of town. I didn't actually watch that one. I've just kind of seen the aftermath of it.
Sure.
And then a couple days ago, there was another, I guess, hearing. It wasn't really a hearing. It was just one guy from the new AARO, which I can't even remember what that stands for. What does AARO stand for? Does anybody know?
No.
This is a really good start to
The expert. You're the expert here.
the All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office. So it was I guess the head of the AARO or a representative of the AARO, just getting in there and saying, "Hey, we're tracking this stuff and debunking shit." And boy, the UFO community did not like that particular hearing. They were pretty upset with it. Pretty much the word right now is, hey, if you do see something anomalous, do not report it to AARO. They're just a big disinformation machine. So, yeah.
Okay, so I have one question. What happened to that guy who did the big disclosure that we were or not big disclosure, but the guy who was in like the big famous hearing?
Grush.
Yeah, what happened to him? Is he still
He's still around. Yeah, he's still around. I read in an article like maybe a week ago that he's been in like some skiffs, some closed security meetings providing information. There was some talk early on when they were talking about this, the hearing that took place on the 13th, of him being there as well, but that was debunked pretty fast. But yeah, I'm not sure what's going on. I know that he wrote allegedly a article that was supposed to be in some big publication, but I think it's either getting held up by the like official military group that has to authorize anything military people publish, or it's, I don't know, he's just not ready to publish it. I'm not sure, but the last thing I heard was something along those lines. So he's still out there, but yeah.
Okay. So what did you hear about the one that happened while you were out of town?
So a couple of new videos were released. And
Like
one
videos
of them,
UFOs.
yeah. And a big document going over the events that the military recognizes as anomalous, as unknown. I wish I would have had that pulled up, but I have no idea how to find it now. But it was like I don't know, like a 17-page document, something like that. And yeah, it just kind of spelled out in written word what the, U.S. government currently recognizes as unknown phenomenon being seen, which includes things like, objects descending into the water and coming back out and things like that. And, things moving at unusual speeds, making unusual maneuvers, that kind of thing. One thing that really interested me, though, and I sent you guys a video of it, a compilation video of it, was that these like dripping UFOs, they kind of look like they're like burning orbs that are like dripping stuff onto the ground. And Lou Elizondo mentioned something about something like that. I don't know if it was in the hearing or shortly before, but there have been a lot of videos people are posting of things along those lines, and looking at them, they really remind me of what I saw when I was down in Orlando last year. And that kind of freaked me out when I like watched the videos in succession. I was like, I can see how what I saw could have been something along these lines. Because what I saw was like this single, very bright orange light that then looked like it expanded into like a line of orange orbs. And then in my mind, I thought it collapsed on itself and then disappeared. But like watching those videos, I could almost see it as it like slagging off parts of itself in a line that as it like cooled, it no longer illuminated. And then it just lost its heat or whatever at that point and disappeared in my view. I don't know. But I mean, it was very interesting either way.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, like, what would that be? What do you think that is?
So I don't know. I'm gonna cut it real quick and say that we're going to share this video on the Patreon. So if you want to watch this, want to stop the episode and go take a look at this video on our Patreon, you can do that. It's patreon.com/thoughtsexpanded.
Good call. Yeah, it is. It's the long compilation video I found in a Reddit post. So it'll probably just be like a Reddit link that you get to go view that. But yeah. So to me, my mind immediately goes to like whatever these things are like seeding something or sowing something, or like my mind goes to like StarCraft creep,
Okay.
like trying to grow their creep. But I don't know. What do you guys think is going on here? They're very, very weird looking.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure I understand what the purpose of a UFO that would like leave something behind and also do it in an obvious manner. I mean, I guess there's always the chance, right? That first of all, aliens are doing something that they don't care if we see. They literally, it doesn't matter to them, or they don't even acknowledge us as like sentient to the point where we could like understand what we're seeing, maybe.
Yeah.
So I mean, I guess that there's always like if you're trying to try to explain their motivations, there's always a chance that they literally do not care at all if we could see what's going on.
Yeah. One of my friends sent me a video earlier today of a man standing over a pile of ants that were like warring with each other. And it was basically along those lines. It was like, these ants have no concept of me. Like, they might see me, they might not. It doesn't matter. Like, and I don't care about them. Like, I'll never know their tiny little lives, and I don't care about their tiny little lives. And that is exactly what, could be out there looking at us, or just not even caring about us.
Sure. Yeah. So I mean, I guess, it could be for whatever purpose at that point, right? I mean, it doesn't really, if they don't care if we see it, then, like all bets are off in a way, you know what I mean? Like, it's, you might as well not speculate almost. The same as the ant. There's no point in the ant speculating about why you're standing there filming it. Like, they don't, the thing is, they don't know. I mean, they can't know, that you're even like, an ant would not even know that you are one being, right?
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
they would only see some small fraction of you if they have you at all.
Right. And if they did look up, they might look like in awe and horror, but not any kind of understanding of what I am.
Right. Yeah. They would only, I mean, they ultimately would not, like, they almost couldn't span your entire existence and see you as one whole thing. Like, I mean, I guess an ant technically might be able to move its head up and look all the way up you. But I mean, by the time they're looking at the top of you, like they're gonna have such a completely different perspective as I do, like sitting across a table from you or something like that, right? So, I mean, they're basically seeing like the bottom of your chin. You know what I mean? Like they're absolutely not seeing a being that has like a purpose for doing anything that it does, right? I mean, they can't infer that whatsoever.
I think we have to wrangle with the question first of, is it just one species or are there multiple things going on here?
Sure.
Because that's the current, because if I take a look at that and I say, if they don't, in this specific circumstance, like they just don't care whether or not we see them or not, or whatever the case is, like, what about them fucking with nuclear bases? Like, so, like, why would they do that if, I mean, they still might not care. Maybe they have a use for our nukes. But like, it raises the question, like, they know that we see them, and they know that we know that they're doing things. And unless it's a completely different, I guess, race of either alien or for future human or whatever you subscribe to for your flavor of alien.
Sure.
Yeah, we were talking about this the other day, and I came up with what I'm calling the unified theory of expanding plausibility. And that being the idea that, okay, if I am willing to accept that aliens are real, which, I mean, is not a hard sell for me, but
Sure.
like, if proof occurs, like if we get proof that aliens are real, that to me instantly makes me think that other like outlandish or unlikely things could be true.
Sure.
Which just really opens me up to the idea, okay, we've got these slag, UFOs, we've got these UFOs fucking with nukes, we've got these UFOs that are going in and out of the ocean. Maybe they're not all one civilization. Maybe they're not all one thing. Maybe they're not even all from space. I mean, they're probably not all from space.
Right.
So yeah, at this point, I'm thinking that we've got some kind of interdimensionality going on. Maybe some time travel and some aliens all at once. That's where I'm sitting right now.
Sure. I mean, I guess the differences could be also explained by the ant theory. Back to that, right? I mean, like the ant might observe you, a little child that's frying them with a magnifying glass as a couple different phenomenon than somebody that's just standing there next to it. Versus someone that's mowing the grass, right? I mean, all of those three things, they're all human beings performing that action, but they're quite different in purpose and from what the perspective of an ant would be.
I say that's a really good point.
So, they could still be one thing and just, have different motives at different times or technology, right? I mean, the slag spaceships could be some particular, like that could be the lawnmower for whatever reason. I don't know exactly what they're doing, but I mean, that could be the equivalent in the ant analogy of the lawnmower.
I had a theory that maybe they're making these slaggy orbs out of a material that they know will like self-destruct in our atmosphere as like temporary probes of some sort. So they can send them through space, but they know once they hit our atmosphere, they're going to ignite and just burn up into nothingness, and they'll get their data and we'll get nothing out of it,
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, like if it did start recently, which there's some reasons to believe it did. I mean, there's a lot more videos of it like in the last year than there were before. Like, I mean, assuming these aren't time travelers and they exist in our linear time somewhat, they might realize that we've gathered a lot of technology from UFO crashes and things, so they might have to send something that's completely not salvageable.
Yeah.
My thought on these things, and I shared these in our Discord when Jeff shared this video with us, is that I feel like it's either people from the future, and that's the effect of the time travel, like how we would see the disruption in the universe, or it could be things from an alternate universe, and that's the effect of them being in our reality. Because we all know that it's much more likely that there are multiple universes and that they're composed of different things. And they're not exactly the same as our universe, which is something that's being widely discussed right now with the theoretical physicists, is that if there are, it's not very likely that the composition is the same. So there could be beings that are created from completely different materials, doing completely different things. And that's just the effect of what they look like when they are here, or the effect of their machine, or whatever equivalency would be when it's here. And that's how we see it. I like that thought. It's very sciencey.
It's interesting. Yeah, I like that.
I mean, another to the ant analogy, at least the ant and human are both carbon-based life forms, and that's completely different. Even if they were from our universe, right? They could still be made of some absolutely different material that behaves in a way that, I mean, it could be an undiscovered atom.
Yep.
So
yeah, undiscovered elements that we just don't know about, even though they say that's impossible at this point. But how many times do they keep saying that it's impossible, and it keeps fucking happening? So,
So another interesting, really just one comment on a Reddit thread that I saw that stuck with me was, I wish I could remember the exact words, but the idea was that if this is one civilization that's trying to contact us, and if they are having to travel, at the speed of light or whatever to get to us, then, time dilation for them would mean that, the things we're seeing now that are like years apart could have been like days apart for them, or seconds apart for them, or weeks apart for them, depending on how far they are and how fast they're traveling, So like it could be that those early crashes that we got were their first like attempts at communicating and getting a hold of us, and then it's just getting more, progressively more advanced, or I don't know, maybe, I guess that wouldn't make sense either though, because if it was getting more advanced, that means time would be going faster for them. So I don't know. I don't know what to think of that, but it did stick with me, the idea that what has been, since the 1940s or whatever for us could have been a blink of an eye for them.
Yeah. There's Dusty saying that they could be like a species that constantly travels at a much faster speed than us too, right? Like they could be on they might have already invented spaceships that travel at near the speed of light, and they're sending these probes from that thing. So that's interesting. That a second could have elapsed, or 2 seconds, just like you saw on you said on Reddit, right? Like the Reddit comment said.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna butcher this by like 1,000 degrees. But there was a theoretical physicist that was on a podcast that I watched a couple weeks back. And he was specifically talking about the speed of light and space travel. And one of the things that he said was that, so when you're traveling at the speed of light, going in a specific direction, that yes, what happens is you actually gain time, right? Like you gain time when you're traveling at the speed of light. However, if you were to turn around and go back the same way you came at the speed of light, you would actually lose time. It would actually be slower. I don't know what the mechanism is behind that. but I guess that's it. It was based on somebody's laws, like whether or not it was based on Einstein's laws or based on Stephen Hawking's writings or something like that. Like it was based on some calculation that was done by someone who's way more intelligent than.
We should get Stephen Hawking's son.
Yeah, let's get Stephen Hawking.
Stephen Hawking. I've been meaning to do that for a while.
Yeah, Stephen. Maybe we can find the Stephen Hawking AI to bring on and ask him all these questions about space. But interesting. Like so is the way that I think about it, and I could be wildly wrong, but when Rab says that maybe these beings themselves just travel at the speed of light, that kind of makes me wonder that if the things between what we were seeing in the 50s until now happened all at the same time, but we're just now seeing them, just like how light is like seen from a distance. At like there's a time different, like a massive time difference between when we see stuff from outer space, right? Like, so maybe there's a chance that some of the stuff that we're seeing has actually already happened, which is why sometimes these things seem to ignore us completely and just do whatever it is that they're doing. And we can't actually act on them. And it's hard to actually track anything with our systems and things like that. Like some of this stuff may just be things that have happened in the past that we're just now seeing that, like kind of like a ghost. Yeah. I don't know. I'm just being wild.
Sure. I mean, to make sense though, like if the stuff that happened first was like 1 or 2 spaceships reaching us, manned, and then now we're seeing basically like a fleet land or something like that, but it's like in absolute dredgingly slow motion for us.
Yeah,
you know, like you like those dropping things are like, I don't know, like almost like projections of something happening that would happen in our future, almost in a way. Like they're moving so quickly that they send that out, or I don't know, maybe that's not possible.
You know, that made me think that maybe the things that are falling off of it, like kind of to Jeff's original point about these things, is like kind of like seeding or whatever it was that you said. Maybe these things are. So imagine when you're flying a giant airplane and we see like our army people jump out of the back of like the giant carrier planes, right? Sure. Or they parachute down. They're always done in waves. Like that's what that reminds me of now, is like waves of something, right? Like, so maybe it's not like dripping something in particular. Maybe that stuff leaving the ship. Maybe, you know, they also said that there are aliens that look like us. Apparently, that was part of the news that came out, was that apparently there are aliens that look exactly like us there on the planet. Maybe that's them. Maybe that's them just dropping off some of their excess population or whatever the fuck it is, right? Maybe they've got a border problem and they're shipping people to a different planet, right? Like,
wait, that was the South Park episode.
Was it kills out of
the pile? You don't remember Back to the Pile?
I don't remember that.
South Park is real.
Yeah, South Park is real. So along those same lines, something I was thinking is that maybe what they're seeding, like, okay, so let's say that they, you know, in the 40s and 50s up until like the 90s, were sending like manned craft and, you know, discovering what, you know, what they would need to survive on Earth. You know what I mean? So maybe these ships are here to like drip stuff that's like, I don't know, changing our atmosphere slightly so they can breathe the air, or, you know,
maybe it's supplies.
Yeah, or supply drops. Yeah.
No. I say fucked up if aliens were causing climate change just so they could live. It made us think we were doing it.
Whoa, that's the theory of a lifetime. That's what I believe now. That's what I believe now, is that aliens are causing climate change And so therefore we have nothing to do with it. It doesn't matter how much fossil fuels we burn. Because we have no fight in this. We have no place in this fight. Like,
Maybe they just really like how coal smells when it's burned, and that's what attracted them. So we did cause it, actually, but it's their fault.
Maybe.
so they're doing it to cause us. That doesn't make any sense. Maybe that's the
They
reaction.
like how coal smells, so they came over here to get a whiff of it, right? And it attracts them, but they're also dropping stuff that makes it warmer. So it's those two things are correlated. They're just not correlated in the way that we think.
Maybe that's their food. Maybe they breathe carbon dioxide and poop out
Heat.
heat. They just poop out heat.
Can't they just go like live on a carbon dioxide planet then? I mean,
They are, though.
when we're getting there, but
We've never had a greener planet. This is the greenest. It's the greenest it's ever been, according to random ass fucking people that I've heard say that.
I don't believe that for a second. Actually,
Because the temperature's warmer, flora prosper more.
maybe a
So
era, but even that I doubt a lot.
Well, I mean, there's plenty of plants that do thrive when it's hot. I just don't think that any of them are ones that we're like. I think the main problem is that it's causing issues with the plants that we grow for food, because those have been used to a particular temperature for all.
look, this is a wild episode. I can't even remember where I heard that from. It's just the thing that I'm saying. Like, I have heard it multiple times, but I can't remember who said it. So
I'm just gonna name this episode "Conspiratorial Bullshit."
that's
No one should know what we hear in this episode.
We're alien brained right now.
right.
Yeah.
Perfect.
All right. Well, that's really all I had to talk about for aliens. So
I'm done. I'm not done with aliens. Okay, so one of the reactions that I saw was, once again, them bringing up that there's definitely aliens in our oceans. That was another claim, was that there's 100% aliens in our oceans. Whether or not they're aliens or whether or not they're just something that's always lived here still remains the question. However, they apparently have proof, whatever this proof is, that we are not alone on the planet and that there are these things in the oceans. So
a few years back, there was a 4chan post. Have you guys heard about this?
no.
It was like a 4chan post that went on for days, and the guy kept coming back and answering more questions. And I read it. I'll see if I can find it and send it to you guys. But it's like 50 like really long screenshots long. And it's just this guy allegedly disclosing that we know for sure that there is a some kind of base in the Caribbean Ocean that produces these like on-demand drones that are never the same shape. They're always like built for whatever their purpose is that they're going out and doing. And it's being printed on demand and then shipped out, and they go and do their things, and they either, are destroyed or come back and whatever. Each ship has something different that it's doing. And that apparently we have captured some of these ships.
Okay.
And that, some of them are like, it seems to be some kind of like science vessel. Some of them seem to be for harvesting. This same guy also disclosed that China has captured one of these and reverse engineered a way to remove mineral from rock with just basically a laser. And that America knows about this and they can't figure it out. It was a really interesting post, but I mean, he was asked a few times about the stuff that was going on in the Pacific off the coast of like San Francisco or wherever that is, where the Tic Tac was filmed. And he's like, it's all compartmentalized. I have no clue about that. I was working on this Caribbean shit. Don't know anything about that. But throughout the thread, as he kept reading it, and as the days passed, he started to be like, now that you guys are coming at me with all of these other like bases that I was not privy to, I'm starting to think that they're all over the place in the ocean, so it was a really interesting thread. And there was a like hour and a half long good YouTube documentary that I have not had a chance to finish yet that was just recently released about it. which I think had something to do with Lou Elizondo too, but I can't remember for sure. But yeah.
Interesting.
That reminds me of that guy who's on, I don't know if he's on YouTube or what platform he's on. I've seen like clips of him on TikTok, who swears that he's able to channel aliens. Have you seen this guy?
From a Bashar?
Yeah.
I love Bashar.
Yeah. So I did see a clip of him, okay, that he made a prediction on an answer to a question that was posed to him, that if the male won the election, that we would never see or never know whether or not there were aliens.
No.
And if the female won, that they would definitely announce themselves.
That's not what he said. That's not exactly what he said. And I'll tell you exactly what he said because I watched that video like 20 times because I love Bashar and that was a fun one. He said, if the woman wins, it will lead to first contact and disclosure. If the man wins, it will lead to the dissolution of the United States and World War III. He never said that we won't have.
That's correct. That's correct.
He just said that it will lead to those two things.
Yes.
Almost brought that up on a previous episode. It was like, nobody wants to hear about this Bashar shit. But
yeah, so I didn't know anything at all about this dude, and I watched a couple videos, and like, so I am not surprised that you love that shit. First off, I am not surprised in any shape or form that you love that shit. I'm of the opinion that dude needs help. Some fairly major help.
maybe. Yeah.
I can't tell whether or not that shit's real, or if he's doing or if he's just trying to be like a mega church personality. Like, I can't decide which it is.
I think if you watch enough of his stuff, though, it becomes very apparent that he does not want to be like a guru or anything like that. That he really does feel compelled to share these things that are being, shared with him by these aliens, by Bashar. And I don't know. I like what he has to say. A lot of my spiritual community likes what he has to say. His stuff that he's saying aligns a lot with stuff that other people I like to listen to are saying in interesting ways. I don't know. I like Bashar a lot. I think he's interesting. Can't remember the actual guy's name. Bashar is the alien, though. And then he's speaking through a guy. I can't remember the actual guy's name, though. I guess
yeah. I don't know. It was wild. Rab, you definitely need to check this dude out when Jeff shares it and give me your thoughts. I need your thoughts on this dude.
Well, that's actually what I was going to ask. If we ran out of things to talk about, so this is a convenient segue. Like, when we were talking about aliens in terms of like they are unknowable beings, right? That have some purpose that like is completely unclear to us, like the ant story, right? Like at that point, what do you guys think? I mean, maybe Wiggy took his hand a little bit, but like, what do you guys think about people who like have claimed to have been abducted, or that they claim to have seen physical bodies of these things? Because a lot of abduction people, at least as far as I'm concerned, they like seem to think that aliens are like two-legged beings, right? That like they stand upright and that they can peer over you as you're laying on an operating table, and I mean, that might be the case even if they are unknowable, but like it seems like those two are at least a little bit at odds. There's some conflict to the way we've been describing them, and that type of close encounter, I suppose.
So what I'll say is, I think there's some reports that are more believable than others.
Sure.
And so one of the ones that I think is has a bit more evidence and maybe a bit more believable to me is the stuff. I don't remember if it was Brazil or Venezuela or where it was in South America, but apparently there was this entire event that happened over a city in South America. where there was a spacecraft that crashed. A police officer was sent to the scene, and police officers saw it. There were two beings that looked very much like what we would describe as a classic alien. So like gray, big head, tiny body. And then all of these people that were in the city that saw them kind of running around and like things like that. Like there's just a lot of eyewitnesses for the same event.
Sure.
And that I feel makes it more credible than some others. And when somebody says like an abduction, I'm not going to say that it didn't happen, but I may be able to be convinced if I sat down and actually talked to that person, because we all have I mean, some people are just really good at lying, but some people, like, you have to trust that you're able, if you sit down and talk to somebody, that you're able to tell whether or not they're lying. Right. And so if I sat down and had a conversation with them, maybe I could determine how I feel about their story. Right. Whereas if something's coming secondhand from a report or whatever it may be, like, I can't just take it at face value because I don't really have the information that I need, right? Like, I can't sit like, do I feel like they're lying to me? Do I feel like they're not being consistent with their story? Do I feel like, like there's a couple things there that I think I would have to take into account.
Okay, so you're saying that you think it is possible that people have seen like two-legged, like traditional aliens, and they're not just some sort of like interdimensional. I mean, ruling out multiple species, right? I mean, which is maybe that shouldn't be ruled out, but that at least that there's something that looks like us somewhat that exists out there.
Yeah, I definitely think so, and I'm also of the opinion that those aliens are also the most likely to be us in the future.
Sure.
Like the future evolved version, like an evolved split version of humans, right? It makes sense, right? Like our brain, like we already have proof that in the past our brain is expanded for whatever kinds of reasons to be larger and things like that. It makes sense that could continue. And our head shape would have to change because of it. And, if we spend all of our time on our mental prowess, because that's the thing that we keep gaining more and more power in, there's a limit to, like, say, muscles, right?
Sure.
That we can't really get past because of our form, right? So maybe
Because of gravity.
Yeah, so maybe that is abandoned in favor of mental acuity. And so therefore we stop worrying so much about how many muscles we have, and we just kind of deteriorate into this type of creature, right? Like that kind of makes sense to me. Yeah, yeah. I mean, we've been trying to do this for a while now, so I mean, it makes sense to me that could definitely be the case.
What do you think, Jeff? What do you think about Close Encounters?
I think that I just think that there's a lot of different species. Like, I don't think I could. Like, I think that is just too much part of my, like, belief to separate myself from that, because otherwise I don't think it makes a whole lot of sense.
Sure.
Yeah, like you're saying. So yeah, I would say that there are gray aliens. I would say that there are, all different kinds of ships that can be encountered, and yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
For the record, that's what I think too. I do think that there's multiple species, and
I mean, I guess at the point where there's one, there's not any reason for there not to be more.
For sure, this takes us back to that unified theory of blah 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 that I made. Where as soon as you can accept that one of them's real, the likelihood that a lot of them are real just becomes a lot bigger, a lot easier to believe.
Well, it's really hard to quantify all of these different things being attributed to one group. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. I mean, actually, it kind of does, because if we think about, oh man, this is driving me nuts. So the reason why it does make sense for it to be just one group is if they are like us, as in humans. There's lots of different versions of us if we think about countries and culture. And so they could all have different motivations and different things. So yes, that does make sense in one way. However, based on the technologies and things that we've seen, it does not make sense as much for it to be just one thing without there being some bleed over in the technology and the purpose and the reasoning. So
in my mind just now, you have built this sci-fi universe where the human species evolves over time into multiple branches. And then at some point in the distant future after that's happened, they determine that the year 2024 was when they all needed to come back and war over something.
gold. This goes all the way back to the Anunnaki, bro. This goes all the way back to the Anunnaki.
If we're out there and traveling the universe, we're finding a lot bigger amounts of gold than we're finding here on Earth. Like, we're finding asteroids.
Can you just fucking not?
I'm just saying. Look something deeper. It definitely, or that, or the cash for gold thing has been run by them the whole time.
Cash for gold. The cash for gold.
Anunnaki front.
I mean, in some ways, what you're describing kind of reminds me a little bit of like the Stargate universe. Are you guys familiar with that?
Small degree.
Yeah, I mean that one. In that one, there's like an ancient species. Like it's Anunnaki coded, I'd say.
Yeah,
and they're called what are they called again? Are they called like gold? Yeah, I think it's GOAULD. And they are actually worms. Spoilers for Stargate. They're worms that can basically infect people's brains. And they have a symbiotic relationship with humans. And so, for whatever reason, I can't remember. I didn't watch the whole thing. But they kind of, their civilization kind of experienced some kind of collapse. And they used to have a whole bunch of different planets all linked by these stargates. And obviously some of the stargates still work. And all of the planets had humans on them. So, but the humans were definitely, like, they had experiments run. Like, some of them were, like, stuck at certain periods of time. And some of them were, like, they had some kind of evolution experiment applied to them. So they were different in some way. So, that kind of reminds me a little bit, like, if we wanted to explain every single, like, upright alien as one thing, that would be one way to potentially do it, is like something that diverged, but naturally, if they're on thousands and thousands of planets, there would be a whole bunch of different species of them. Like I guess it just depends on how fast they travel and whether they could continue to interbreed or not.
That could explain this idea that the pyramids were power generators, which is a belief philosophy as well. So yeah, maybe that's the case. Maybe they're like, oh, we forgot about this place. Like, maybe it just broke down, and then generations later they were like, what's this thing? Oh, it links to this planet over here. And then they were like, let's go see where our ancestors came from. Like, maybe that's what's going on.
Maybe
we were the second seed or something like that, and
it stopped being important after a while.
Just stopped being important after a while. They're like, oh, those are boring humans, right? They don't do anything.
There was something else I was gonna say along those lines. I guess the other theory, if you like, I mean, I'm just at this point sort of inventing ways that you could potentially unify all these things as one, universal alien. Another way to explain that would just be that people literally experience some form of energy in vastly different ways. That there is that none of them are two-legged, bipedal, whatever, and that they're all, either they're made of energy, or they just like emit so much energy that it overloads our brain, and we're forced to invent what they look like. We have to put something there standing in front of us because we can feel them, but they're not. There isn't they're not causing one particular interpretation to be shown, or even better, they are, and they're choosing a whole bunch of different ones, one or the other.
So I would say that this is also something that I think of that people have thought about before. So when some people believe that the ancient stories that we hear about fae and fairies and dragons and those kinds of things and angels and demons and all of those things are actually just what you're saying. It's just our brain creating something that we can maybe understand based on the information that's being given to us that our brain can't process, right?
Sure.
I think maybe we had a very similar conversation when we were talking to
Bianca?
Yeah. Yeah, I think we had a similar conversation like along these lines when we were talking Bianca. Something about, when ships, like large ships were first encountered by, island living people had never seen ships before. Like they couldn't even process what they were seeing. So they just simply didn't see it. Like they didn't even appear to them,
Right.
So in like a similar way, like we're just seeing what our brain can comprehend,
Yeah, people in South America, the first time they saw horses, right? Like just these Spaniards riding on horses, right? Like what do you call that?
Where'd you get that skinny cow?
Right.
Right. Mermaids, for example, another big one, right? So maybe this giant base in the ocean is Atlantis, and it's alt humans. Well, kind of like we like this mindset of alt humans. So like maybe that's just the alt humans, and they're just more advanced, and they always have been, and this is them reaching out to the world after not doing it for a while, right? Or doing it sparingly. Maybe their politics have changed internally, and they're like, we're about expansion now. Like maybe the expansionist party is taking over, or
maybe we have just finally evolved to a point where we can start to visualize and see and understand these things. Like maybe up until this point, we simply couldn't see them, so we were ignoring them. We were just whatever. And now that we're building our own technology that's starting to like compare in some ways with theirs, we're starting to like recognize and see it, even though we don't fully understand it.
Well, going back to what you were saying, I think a lot of people theorize that their UFO abductions are the same thing as people used to have dreams that they were being harassed by an incubus or a succubus, right? Like that because they were immersed in Catholicism, that was the only thing that they could conjure was a demon. Like they had to believe that what they were seeing was something supernatural, and they just fitted into an existing groove, right? So, I'm not exactly sure where I was going with that. Somehow I was relating it back to what you were just saying, but I lost the plot.
so what that reminded me of is actually the description of the Nephilim in the Bible. So I started thinking about the ship that, like the drip ship, and that's very similar to the description that they actually give in the Bible of angels. And so maybe you're right, Rab, in that this is how we're interpreting them, and this is kind of how we've always interpreted them, but we didn't know. But now that we're investing in technology, we're trying to explain away the phenomenon by attributing it to technology when it has nothing to do with technology at all. And it's just cosmic fart bullshit or whatever the fuck it is, right? Like maybe it's just maybe the universe is just fucking falling apart, or maybe this is the year of the year of revelations. Like who fucking knows for sure? But like that makes a lot more sense when we start thinking about how people have described these things in the past and when we start to read those and look at these things now, we're attributing them to technology because we assume it's technology because of how advanced technology has become in our lives. We're just assuming that that's the next step, and it could just be the original step or whatever it is. Oh, I just blew my own fucking Matrix mind. My own Matrix mind.
If like is used back to ants in a lot of ways.
Goes back to what?
Like ants.
Oh, yeah. I was gonna say it'd be funny if it was just like literally a space phenomenon. Like it doesn't have a technological explanation. It's like something that just temporarily cooks your brain, like a sunspot or something like that, right? And it emits like a certain type of radiation, and that causes you to see something for a period of time. And then that's all. But every single thing, like every single supernatural phenomenon, is traced back to that one. I mean, it's kind of a sad theory of unification here, but one that
Maybe
must be considered.
maybe all of these things are the old gods. Like each one of these things that we're seeing is different is maybe one of the old gods. Like the Greek gods or the Viking gods or whatever it is. Maybe they're all real and they're all just fucking around now because they're like, these guys are doomed anyway. It doesn't matter if we're here or not. Like we might as well show them. We might as well just be here because why the fuck not at this point? Like this world's gone to fucking crazy. So on that note, speaking of fucking crazy, so I've got an update on the story that happened. So on the last podcast or the one before, whichever it was, I talked about how
Definitely not the last. I mean, it's been before we delved into politics. I'm pretty sure that was 4 episodes ago.
okay, there were what I assumed was children throwing rocks and shit at my cars and my house and all this other kinds of stuff.
Right.
It was children. It was a group of 3 childs.
Okay.
Who live and or stay in the neighborhood a couple houses away from me.
Sure.
Who were specifically targeting our home. I'm going to give you guys the reason first.
Okay.
Which is the lead child stated that he once walked by our house and one of us, either me or my wife, yelled at him for no reason whatsoever. This is the reason that was been given.
Sure.
Whatever the fuck that means. That was the reason that was given for this very emotional targeting of my family and abode. So it happened again.
Right.
They left their house at 1:00 in the morning, came over, and this time threw soda cans and cans of green beans at my cars. And yeah, get beaned. And so right away, so I'm sleeping. Audrey comes and wakes me up and says, like, it's happening again. Okay, so we go out. And at this point, we have already gained information from our neighbors. We've gained video footage of them. We know where they came from. We know whose kids they are, all this kinds of stuff. I had decided that I wasn't going to do anything about it because it was the first time, because it was a one-off thing. Kids are just being kids. It was right before Halloween. I didn't want to have to really get the cops involved and the law involved because that shit goes on records, and I didn't want to do something to a kid like that.
But the first times, no police go over and talk to them?
No. When the police first came over, we had no idea who it was.
Sure. And you found out who it was, and
we found out who it was, and I did not tell them.
I see.
And then
so presumably their investigation failed, or they didn't follow up fully, or whatever.
Right. They didn't follow up, whatever. What? Right. And then the second time that it happened, I had to literally like yell Audrey down because she was on her way over there to mess up some people, and get her to come back in my house, which I did. And then I called the police back. We gave them all the information that we had, told them whose kids they are, what house it's coming from, all this other kinds of stuff. And so they go over there, and like I said before, is this kid's grandfather. He was obviously asleep. It was 1:30 in the morning by this point, so the cops wake him up. Um, by the way, I live in, and I think I mentioned this before, I don't live in big city. I live in small city, and small city people do not like police. And so there was a little bit of coaxing that the police had to do to get him to actually talk to them at all. Once that kind of happened and the cop kind of told him what was going on, he eventually was like, okay, so what's going on? They had the guy asked to come over and see the damage and stuff, which we let him do. And he's like, what the hell? We tell him like this is the second time now. Of course he knows nothing about this, right? So he's just stunned. And he's pissed off because he's like kids can do whatever they fucking want to, but not with people's property, right? Like this is like where I live, right? This is like don't fuck with my property kind of people. So he was very mad. And at the time the kids were not in the home. So he goes back over. We're talking to the cops and stuff, and then like 5 minutes later, the guy comes out of the house and goes, "They're here. They're here in the house." So the cops go over there, and these kids are pretending to be asleep, like they've been there the entire time. The cops have already been over there. Right. So the cops know that they weren't there. So they were pretending to be asleep.
And surely these children know cops have been called.
Yes, very much so. Very much aware. So the cops are talking to them, and the cops like, why would you guys do this and what's going on? And they're like, we didn't do anything. And the cop's like, I have you on video. Would you like to revise your story? And the guy and the kid's like, yeah, we did it. And the cop was like in the last time too. And the kid was like, what last time? We only did it this time. And the cop was like, we have you on video. Would you like to try that again? And the kid was like, okay, we did it both times. Essentially the reasoning was given that we yelled at him at one point. Apparently it was just two of the kids, not all three.
But you yelled?
No. That were involved in the throwing of items.
So one child was just watching.
One child was like, you guys are fucking crazy, right? Like one kid was like, I'm not doing this, which is every group. There's at least one kid that's like, I'm not doing that. That was me when I was a kid. Like, I'm not doing that stupid shit. You guys can do that stupid shit.
Right.
So there's two of them. They're trespassed from their property. And the cop says that they're going to file mischief charges, which is a misdemeanor. It's a misdemeanor. The next day, the mother of the child comes over, just to say, like, look, I'm sorry. This is crazy. There's a lot going on. Grandma died, and that was his person this year. And she's a nurse, so she's not really around that often. And this kid's 12, right?
Sure.
And he's going through hormones and all that kinds of. He's in the middle of puberty right now, right? So we were talking to her and stuff, and she's like, we'll make this right, like whatever it costs to get, fix the car up, we'll pay for, and all that kinds of stuff. And while we're having this conversation, the cop shows back up, and he's like, yeah, so I just came to check on you guys and stuff. And I was like, well, we're just having a conversation. And the cop goes, doing charges is up to you guys. Do you guys want to charge for this, right? Or do you not want to charge for this?
Sure.
And we've decided not to. Sure. We're handling this as neighbors. So they're going to pay for the damage to the car. There's some damage that I'm not actually worried about. It's just kind of like some very, very tiny dicks, very, very tiny dinks, or and things like that I'm just not very concerned about. The only thing that I'm concerned about is my tail light, which is what they broke the first time around.
Sure.
That's going to cost, close to $600 or so to fix. So, so that's the craziness, that ensued. So not once, but a second time, a group of children targeted my family. So apparently the original cop was right, because if you remember correctly, he asked me if I had any enemies. Apparently I did, and I didn't know it. So this was a mafia situation that I just was not aware of, that I had beef with a 12-year-old. But I did have beef with a 12-year-old, apparently.
Do you have any clue what they mean by you were yelling at them? Like, do you remember at all?
We never did it. First off,
Well, sure.
we don't talk to anybody. We would not yell at a kid in front of our house unless he was actually doing something very wrong. Like, I don't go around talking to other people's children.
Sure.
Like the idea that we did this at all, the guess is that it's a mistaken identity, and it maybe it happened with our neighbors. Maybe our neighbors said something to him because they live more closely across the street.
Front of your house.
Right. And so that's a very real possibility that maybe something like that happened.
Sure.
And it's just a case of mistaken identity as to why we were targeted. That's the most likely scenario.
Is it possible you were just like outside yelling and the kid thought it was intended for them?
We don't go outside.
Okay.
So I just don't see that being the case at all.
Kid's story is Swiss cheese.
Right. That I think they were targeting it. Like, if you want my opinion, I think they were targeting this because we're across the street from them and a couple houses over, and we're the only person that has one of those like lights in the middle of our yard that are tall, so you can see what's going on or in the area. So we made a bright target, whereas all the other houses are covered in darkness, right? So we're what's visible. If they were to throw shit, they could see what it hit, right? Like, that's my I think that's what happened.
And obviously, like, a child is going to come up with an answer when the cop asks them, like, what was the reason? Right? Like, they're going to try to come up with whatever answer they think would get them the most sympathy, which, I mean, obviously doesn't really make much sense anyways. But
when the true answer was, I just wanted to cause some chaos, right? Like, that's the real answer. They just wanted to cause some chaos.
So give that kid some fireworks and let him go into the woods.
fireworks off the lake. That was fun.
Yeah, but the grandfather actually came over and cleaned all of the debris and everything up in our yard, which was very nice. The mother was very, very kind. She seemed like she was a little in over her head, and we just didn't want to add all that to the plate. You don't kick people when they're down, right? So that's kind of the entail to this. But
I mean, I imagine there are people in the world who would defend their children in some way, like try to get a lawyer or something involved. But like, I feel like the vast majority of people are going to just say, like, well, that was my kid, and I'm very sorry for them, and I'm going to do what I can to make it right. And I think you're probably lucky to be in a situation where they actually can, like, pay for your broken tail light or something like that. Because
I mean, she was very grateful that we were not going to press charges on her kid. She was very grateful that we were willing to just work this out with her over time.
Yeah.
Like she was crying at one point. She was so grateful, right? Like, because that's a lot of stress. And so, like, yes, but I think most people are just like, well, like you're saying, I think that's most people are reasonable. When
the vast majority of the time, like, a child being visited by the police is probably enough of a lesson for most children to
straight.
Yeah, I guess so.
Especially one like the ones that were here that night. They were very like, I'm not going to put up with your bullshit kind of cops. And they were like, okay, like, they've been through everybody said the situation was wild. Nobody can think of anything. Like even the cops were like, "What the fuck is going on here?" Like completely clueless. Like this is not a scenario that happens ever.
It sounds like a James A. Caster story.
It is some of James A. Caster story.
Just like the wild stuff that happens to him. But you got into a scrape with a 12-year-old. That's what happened.
Yeah, essentially, yeah. So, but good ending. Good ending.
Yeah, and I think that is a good ending.
Yep.
Yeah.
So let's do it again.
Maybe the 12-year-olds were aliens all along.
Yep.
That's what I was gonna say. Maybe the 12-year-old thought we were aliens. Maybe that's where it was.
All right, folks. Thank you for joining us. We'll catch you in the next one.
Bye.